But it needs additional necessary transfers. So we have a definition of those transfer stations. We have some development standards, but we don't have a definition. We have a definition for recycling facility that includes use performed in an enclosed building where scrap or salvage materials are shredded, milled, crushed, ground, bought, sold, exchanged, stored, baled, and disassembled, handled, including but not limited to scrap items, metals, paper, rags, rubber, tires, bottles, plastic, and aluminum cans. Recycling facility shall not include automobile regulations. So staff looked at that definition and looked at the proposed use as I was asked to review at the time, and thought that it actually fit into that definition fairly well. The piece about the household hazardous waste, I'll come to in a minute, but I do think we should just have a brief discussion about recycling. When facilities, commercial recyclers or public facility recycling receive waste, inherent, or recycling goods, inherent in that process is going to be part of that stream that is not recyclable. Somebody may recycle a whole bag full of newspaper, but maybe some of it was tainted with turpentine or some other chemical they used to clean something. They have to pull that out of the waste stream. People recycle plastics, and we all look for the little triangle on the bottom of it. And yet some plastics, even though they are recyclable by design, may not be able to be recycled at this time by the city for various reasons. But the point is that we still take in these goods. A vast majority of recyclable, there's always going to be a residue stream that is not. The state recognizes this. Of all the recyclers that have been given conditional use permits in the city of Minneapolis, and there's a number of them, mostly on the north side, they all have a state permit to transfer because they know that there is going to be an inherent part of that stream that is not recyclable. Now, the permitting at the state, which is not our regulatory function to monitor that, is it shouldn't be more than 50%. So 85% of the waste stream that comes in is recycled, 15% is not, and that is accepted under the state permit. So being mindful that our society is driving towards recycling more and more and more product out of the waste stream. So for instance, currently, when you go to the Southside transfer station, there's things like cementitious stone that they'll take in there. That can't be recycled currently because it's stored outside. The same product is stored in enclosed buildings has the potential to be recycled because it's kept away from the elements. Automobile products in the past that weren't recyclable now, you take them in as a household hazardous waste. Oil products are shipped off to refineries and refined and recycled. Gasoline is refined and recycled. So again, while this may not have been true in the past, as these processes involve more and more of the so-called waste streams being made and recycled, there's pending legislation in the future that probably will require all shingles to be recycled. Shingles are not recycled now. So there's an aspirational quality to recycling that I think you're going to see it's going to grow, and you're going to see more and more of the so-called waste stream becoming recycled. So let's talk about household hazardous waste for a minute. We talked about automotive products, which are considered a household hazardous waste, and yet they're currently much of that is being recycled. Under the federal rules of RAPRA, RAPRA being the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, which was passed in 1976 and amended in 1984 as a federal rule, that household hazardous waste from a household is actually exempt. And so any material, including garbage, trash, sanitary waste, septic tanks, derived from households, including single and multiple residences, are exempt from the same rules as commercially recycled household hazardous waste, or excuse me, household hazardous waste. What that's saying is there's a recognition that households have pesticides, they have products, that we have automotive products, and that they're basically for their own use. And the municipalities have to be able to handle this waste stream. And so they have a specific exemption that is different if you were an industrial use that had a byproduct that you had to get rid of. That has to be handled very differently and is under a different set of rules and goes to different sites. But these municipal recycling facilities under NACRA are allowed to take in household hazardous waste. And so, again, we believe that the proposal, even though it's going to accept some household hazardous waste, is consistent with federal statute and consistent with recycling facilities in other municipalities. And in fact, will probably be handled much better than the current situation. I mean, one of the impetuses for this is the county recognizes that the city under-participates in household hazardous waste recycling. And they know that waste is going somewhere. And where it's going is into the waste stream. It's going into people's garbage bags, it's getting dumped into the street, it's being left at other people's property for them to handle. So our impetus for growing this facility is to increase participation by the city of Minneapolis residents. Let's talk again about what the facility is going to be. It's going to be facility up in Northeast. It will go through a site plan review. It will require a conditional use permit. It will only accept residents' waste, and yes, that may be brought there by a handyman or somebody who helped them, but they have to have a voucher to get in there. It is a voucher program. This is not open to commercial haulers. You will not see commercial trucks. You will not see City of Minneapolis solid waste vehicles hauling there. It is not a waste transfer facility. It is a recycling facility intended for use by the City of Minneapolis and Hennepin County residents. Yeah, as part of the CUP process, it will go through a site plan. The site plan will afford to improve the site. It will be improved over what it is today, which is a somewhat moribund industrial site. For any of you who have seen the facilities that Hennepin County has up at Brooklyn Center in Bloomington, I would suggest these are fairly clean sites. In fact, they're very clean. They're well run, they're well maintained. So I would suggest that part of the site plan process, site plan review process, may actually bring a lot of investment and improvement to the site over what it is today, including providing for stacking of vehicles and other things that currently is a little bit problematic at the South Side Transfer Site. Part of the conditions that would be on any conditional use permit would be that the facility would be required to be for the voucher program to meet that definition, not open to municipal solid waste haulers or commercial waste haulers, and it would also be subject to any required Minnesota Pollution Control Agency permits. So this staff really believes that the proposal, as we saw it at the time we were asked to weigh in on it, does meet the definition of a recycling facility and should be allowed to go forward with the conditional use permit application. I would just say that out of the Board of Adjustment, there were some concerns by some of the residents. And I think that the board at that time thought that a lot of those concerns were better placed during the conditional use permit process and not too much about the underlying appeal. And I think that's a valid point. So I would just ask the committee as we work through the testimony today, just to be mindful that the project will still be required to go to the planning commission to the site plan to come get an additional use permit. And we'll keep it
Yep. All right. Thank you very much. I do have one question. Will the household hazardous waste be included within the 15% threshold for waste as allowed overall by the state of Minnesota at a recycling facility?
Chairmanship, I think the way, and I'm not the best expert on this, but I'll give my answer the best I can. My understanding is that the household hazardous waste, because it's toxic nature and kind of deleterious secondary effects that gets leaked, it has to be handled a certain way. But even of that household hazardous waste, they hope to achieve an 85% recycling. And if you go up to Brooklyn Center as I did, I mean, they really recycle almost all of these chemicals. The one product they struggle with is bug repellent, quite frankly. It's the off can and an aerosol can. It's hard to get it out of the container. There's liability. They can't put it on the shelf anywhere that they give products away at these sites. They have to use it on latex paint, etc. But the pesticides are a real problem. But the vast majority of these other products are totally recyclable.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Any other questions?
Question. It sounds like you looked at what's going on in Brooklyn Park and Bloomington. Did they have a determination in those jurisdictions about what the primary use was, and did they officially defined as anything?
Well, they're, I'm trying to get Councilmember Gordon, one of them, I think the Bloomington actually says it's a waste transfer center, so they're not having the same struggles we are. They're accepting that they already are a waste transfer center. Bloomington, or excuse me, Brooklyn Center, they have a slightly different take on it. They take in material there. I think they are considered, at the time they were considered to be partial waste transfer, but that was allowed there. What happens is the MPCA allows the local jurisdictions to do this, the conditional use permit for the permitting of these. That's not always the case out of state, locally. So they weren't trying to cite a pure recycling facility. However, that being said, as you go up there today, that operation is different than even 5 years ago for the reasons that I stated. More and more of the material that comes in there is recycled.
And I also noticed that they actually take all recycling materials free from residents and businesses, the standard stuff that we pick up from our households.
Yeah,
Is the plan for this facility over on 27th Avenue to also then take the typical spectrum of recycled materials from residents and businesses if they want to bring them in? The cardboard, the paper, the plastic, phone books, the metal?
Well, I want to be clear, this is a voucher program. So some of these facilities, if you're a contractor, you can pay a tipping fee and get in. But that will not be the case here. As our understanding is, this is a voucher program. So it's when you or me want to get rid of our stuff, we go to solid waste and we get a voucher. This is not Pam's, junk removal service, and he's got a truck loaded. Geez, I'm going to go up northeast because it's close and I'll pay a tipping fee. So it is a voucher program aimed at the residents of Minneapolis and Hennepin County. It's not open to commercial haulers or contractors.
Except the Brooklyn Center one, all you need is your ID to indicate